Get your giggles out now. All right, I'm going to do a short intro into that camera. I'll introduce you. And,
so I'm looking at you the whole time?
Yeah, I mean, we're just talking.
Just a chit-chat.
But there's an audience, so if you ever felt like you wanted to talk to the audience, just look into that camera. Like, I'm definitely going to kick it over to you a few times.
You need to be careful.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is not supposed to be a shit show.
This is about you.
Yeah.
And your situation. I'm the unfortunate bystander, but go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, welcome to the table. I'm James Zimmerman, and with me today is my lovely wife, who is very offline most of the time, but she's agreed to be here, Christy Klein Zimmerman. So, we have a loose agenda with this. Basically, I want to finish responding to what is out there about the situation that led to my firing at the Nashville Symphony, so that I never have to talk about this again, because it's the end of the year, we are sick of this, and we wish that this had gone differently, and this is not fun. It's funny, and we have reached the point of being ready to laugh about this. Hopefully we'll do some of that tonight, but these subjects are terrible, so we just threw some cameras up. We're going on the record right here at the table. So, Christy and I have been married for about 6 years. We got married in 2015. We moved out to the suburbs in 2016 and had a baby in 2016. It's very quick. And, excuse me, 2016 was just like a crazy time in everyone's life in this country. And it was a crazy time in the orchestra. And a lot of stuff was changing. We had kind of just lived completely in our own world for a couple years after my first wife, Candace, passed away unexpectedly in 2015. We met quickly. It was an amazing story that we'll tell that later. We want to tell our happy stories. And our story is happy about what happened here with the Nashville Symphony and moving on from that. But 2016, going back to that, was a crazy time. What do you remember about that year?
Francesca being born.
I had to miss the first 3 weeks of the Nashville Symphony season because of that. She was born early, and we were just lost in newborn babyland out in Nolensville. We moved way out of town, and we bought this table for that house. We're in a different house now. We're back in town, but we thought we wanted to live out in the suburbs and send our kids to public school and just like put roots down there and live out the next 25 years. That was our intention when we did that, but it just wasn't for us. So we brought this table back to Nashville, where we are now. So that's how this table got here. But 2016 was a big year for the Nashville Symphony because, I should say 2017, the year after Francesca was born. That was a really big year for the Nashville Symphony because it was a negotiating year, which is the political process through which any major changes to the culture of an orchestra are going to be made. They're made at the negotiating table. And we were under some new pressure in 2016 culturally with what is now the social justice agenda that has dominated the country for the last couple years. And what happened to the Nashville Symphony is a great story for anyone who's interested in that type of subject. But there's a human interest element of the story that took place right at this table that is a good way to close the door and respond to the last of what's out there. So, do you remember that night when everybody came over from the orchestra?
I do.
This was a night where we were getting ready to negotiate, and the orchestra was really fractured. Our family was fractured, and we were coming back together. So we had this plan to get ready to negotiate our contract, to figure out from the musicians of the orchestra, what did we want? I was an elected representative on this committee, so this is my idea. This is something that I really believe in orchestras: teamwork, team building. We'd had so many retirements, so many new young players, and we needed to hear from these young people. Like, you've been through the audition process more recently than us old timers have. Like, what's it like? How can we make it better? And do we want to ask for any other type of improvements to our working conditions, whatever? So we just had all these people over.
There were a lot of people over.
Probably
15?
15, 20 people. It was this huge house. And I won't speak for you, I kind of wanted to show it off because I'd had a couple years in the orchestra that were really bad with what we were going through with our personal life. Well, at least everybody else perceived it as really bad. For us, it was really great. It was really fun going out there. And I was like the only person in the orchestra, except for one other person that I can think of off the top of my head, that had 3 kids. This is the only way we could get a house like this. So
Suburbia.
We wanted to like show some people in the orchestra, like, hey, check out Nolensville. This is a cool place. We've always been super into real estate, and it's a fun hobby and wealth building machine for us, and it's part of what we love about this house. And anyway, so we had all these people over to talk about what we wanted the orchestra to become in 2017. And then a couple months after that, we had Titus Underwood over to the house because he was going to play for me. He was getting ready to go audition for the Minnesota Orchestra. So Titus was not included in this big effort to ask the orchestra what they wanted in negotiations because he was a temporary player at the time.
Yes.
So he was trying to get a permanent job, and he wanted to come over, and well, he wanted to play for me. Totally normal thing. Like, hey, can I play some excerpts for you before the audition? I've played for people have played for me dozens of times, so this is totally normal. And I was like, yeah, I mean, why don't you come over?
For dinner.
Yeah, so like we made a thing out of it.
Yes.
We made a thing with the whole orchestra. We're like 15 people from the orchestra and their spouses. And then we made a thing with just Titus because he wanted to play for me for this audition. It was over the holidays. It was in January of 2018. So like approximately 4 years ago. Next week, this will be 4 years ago. So it was his birthday. I didn't even realize this. I had proposed a date. It was January 3rd. I was like, why don't you come over that day? I saw on Facebook it was his birthday. I was like, dude, like, what do you want for dinner? Like, I know you're vegan. What can we do to accommodate? And he says, oh, don't worry about it. When I go to people's houses, I don't expect people to include my dietary restrictions. But you did that. So what did you do?
Spaghetti alla puttanesca.
It's
my favorite dish to make. And there's anchovies, so I took the anchovies out for Titus because vegans don't eat meat. There's no cheese in it, so I took the anchovies out. Yeah.
So it was like a special dish. It
Yes.
was interesting. It was not as good, but it was worthwhile to like make the effort.
Olive oil instead of butter for
Exactly.
the bread.
We got a fresh baguette and all this, and it was super fun. And it was also fun. The playing part was fun. We went up to my music room where I used to shoot all my old Clarinet Jobs videos and stuff with that blue wall. And he sounded really rough. Like, I have to say, he was not in a position to win that job in the Minnesota Orchestra. But there were things in his playing that up until that night I had never heard because I sat behind him, and I played in a big group with him. So, like, this is the first time I really heard his voice. And, like, it was really quite amazing. He's a character. Like, what did you think of him when he came over?
He was full of personality. He was charismatic. He was entertaining to the girls. Very easy to talk to.
Yeah. He sat right there. So
At the end.
So we sit at the table. This was my seat. You were sitting here, and
There was a bench right here.
the bench was over here with
Our
Caroline
baby
and Molly.
over there.
Baby Francesco right here, and Titus was at the head of the table. So we're making small talk. I didn't really know him that well. He had just joined the orchestra a couple months before, and like all I knew was that he also liked rap.
He came from a big family too.
I knew that, and that's what we talked about.
I came from a big family.
So he mentions he's the youngest of 6 kids, and we're all like, wow, like that's an unusually large family by most people's standards. And Titus clarified that his oldest sibling was actually his half-sibling from one of his parents' first marriages, but he was like, it's so ridiculous to even say that out loud. She's just my sister. And our kids had never met somebody in that situation who could understand them until that night, because they had the same situation but in reverse. Our youngest kid is the half sibling of everybody else, but we agree that it's ridiculous to think of Francesca as the half sister of Caroline and Molly. Like, it's preposterous. They don't think of it that way. We don't see it that way. We sometimes just notice it, but overall, there's 3 kids in this family and they're all sisters. There's no halves. That's just not how it is. So we really bonded with Titus over that. Like, that was cool.
She connects us like his half-sister connected them.
Yeah, like Francesca is the only person in this family who's related by blood to everyone else.
To all of us, yeah.
So she's like this nexus point, and like, that's what you do when you have people from the orchestra join. You bring them over to your house. Like, I was taught this in the Pacific Symphony. There was this couple, Cindy and Tony Ellis. You met them.
I did.
When we went out to...
Cindy's amazing.
Yeah, like these...
So is Tony, yeah.
These people taught me how to socialize in an orchestra, how to be successful. Like, we had this little woodwind quintet concert, and so we had the rehearsal at their house, and then we had dinner afterwards. It was a wonderful time. When I first joined the orchestra, like, made me excited. I mean, how many people have we had in this house? Or not this house, but our Nolensville house.
Yeah.
Matt Griffith, Eric Abramovitz, Catherine Kohler.
The buffet people.
Yeah, like all these people, like the people from Buffet would come over and bring us, gifts from Buffet, or just like to stop and hang out.
Have dinner.
Like, this is just what musicians do. Like, we include our fellow musicians. So it was a really great night at this table, and something I intend to remember for a long time as like how super fucking normal it was. You know what I mean? Like, there was just nothing weird about it. Like, there was no specialized effort to bring him over for any ulterior reason, to feel better about ourselves, or any of the stupid shit that he put the whole orchestra through for the next year and after year after year, I'm assuming up until today. Like, this was before he had tried to deploy any of that. And, I mean, I saw it coming, but I was like, nobody is that crazy.
I didn't see it.
Because why would you ever be so cynical and think that? This was before 2020. Mm-hmm. This was the before times. So fast forward from that night.
Well, we talked about his family dynamics, because I'm from a big family. He's from a big family. We have blended children. I adopted and birthed, so we're all blended. He's blended.
Yeah, it was
just a very organic conversation. Our girls prayed for his audition. They prayed for him to get the audition.
I forgot about that.
We prayed over that meal for him to win the audition. We wanted him to win the principal player for the oboe of the Nashville Symphony.
And then when his sister died, like, we prayed for him again.
We prayed over his safety in travel. The girls prayed over his peace. We invited him back to dinner.
Yeah, I mean, we table that because we'll get to that point in the story, but like, it was just, he was blossoming into his full musical self. We were all a part of it. It was this success story waiting to happen, and it was all destroyed by Giancarlo. I'm on the record already about all that, like what happened at the audition. It's been reported. I've put out some content about how I feel about that situation and those people. We're not going to mow that grass again. But what we are going to mow is those orders of protection that were slammed on me by Titus and the muscle hijacker of that whole situation, Emilio Carlo. I have nothing really to say about Emilio. He's been reported on by Aaron Siberium in the Free Beacon. He was given his chance.
But Titus said we didn't know about his family, but he shared it at this very table.
So
it wasn't a mystery that he was from a blended family, because I also adopted children and we were from blended.
Yeah, so he asserted in the order of protection that he pulled on me, which is public record. Anybody can go look at it, I guess. Yes. I don't care to share anything about it, except that he alleged... I had said in this famous email that I wrote to Emilio, which Maybe someday I'll publish that so people can see how ridiculous it is. But again, anybody that wants to see Emilio Carlo's reading comprehension level can go pull these public restraining order things and see that he can't even spell the word racist.
He was kind of pulled in.
He was used and abused and destroyed by Titus in this process. They both gave their entire selves and spiritual lives to this cause. It's so pathetic and sad. But what happened in court, he asserted in that petition to get a temporary order of protection against me before going to court and humiliating me there, but mostly humiliating himself in the long run. He asserted that when I said in this email, that I had mentioned in this email to Emilio that Titus is the youngest of 6 children, I was comparing Titus, I was basically saying that Titus is immature. And I'm used to having to make sure my kids are safe when I'm walking them down the street, like making sure they don't wander into traffic. And I'm sick of feeling like that at my job too. Because that's what it was like at the end when Titus was falling off the wagon like this, whatever was happening to him. Whatever happened, he asserted that he had never shared the details of his family with me.
At this table, he shared it.
Whatever happened at this table, all that intimacy, he either forgot it or he lied about it. And the point is, I don't care which it is. It is one of those two things. He either is a bald-faced liar or he just memory hold it. I think that's what happened. I think he forgot. And he was just so obsessed with this made-up story about me that I handed to him in the car that night when he asked me to rap for him, when he just set this trap, and I was like, do you really want to do this? If this is the only way you think you can get to the top is by destroying me in the process, go right ahead. It'll never happen. Boy, was I wrong on that. I was really fucking wrong. I really assumed that these people in management would get my back after all that I had done for them in saving Giancarlo and Alan and all of those fools. And every one of my foolish ex-colleagues who did not speak up for Titus, because the Nashville Symphony has no principles at all.
It's scary to speak up.
No, it's not.
For people who aren't strong.
It's scary to lie and then come home and tuck your kids in. So
I don't know, because we don't do that in our house.
So again, to just close the chapter on the restraining order, I'm standing there in court as this judge is reading this diatribe of Titus, is reading the email I sent to Emilio. By the way, this judge, we later learned, was like a sub-judge. There was some kind of judges conference that week. This guy was pulled in from one of the rural counties.
He was a substitute.
He was a substitute teacher. I had already been fired. And Gail Robinson, one of the most legendary cowboy judges in Nashville, even he fell for Emilio's bullshit in the courtroom. Because Emilio he was screaming and crying. You could have heard a pin drop in there. There's all these actual hardened criminals in orange jumpsuits and chains in the courtroom. And Emilio outshouted them all. It was the most wonderfully demented freak show I have ever seen in my life. And my lawyer was like...
Performance.
It was a performance, because that was the moment at which I found out that they put Emilio and Titus in safe houses all over town.
Yes.
How ridiculous this was, what they made management do. I knew they were going to go run and cry to them. And I did. That's why I sent that email, to turn the two of them off of me to them. I knew they were going to go cry bully them. And Alan just bent over and took it all. It is just so unbelievable how far they sunk to avoid losing their own careers and lighting me on fire in the process. It was a true witch hunt. I know that we have been robbed of the real impact of that term by our former great president, Donald Trump, but this actually was the psychological phenomenon known as a witch hunt. It was scary as fuck. All of that, wasn't it?
It's like a performance.
It was.
Sitting back there watching it all was like watching a play that I was uninterested in going to.
But we had to do it. We had to watch them go through this. We had to watch them stand there and crucify me. And I begged. I actually begged. So in that courtroom, as Titus is saying, I never shared any of the details. I was like, dude, you were at my house. Don't you remember? It was your birthday. My wife altered her signature recipe for your vegan dining habits. How can you have forgotten this? How can you be saying this? And there was just nobody home. He was truly having some sort of out-of-body, parallel universe experience. He should have been institutionalized. That's happened to me before, by the way. I come from a long and twisted family tree of genius on one side of the coin and mental illness on the other. And it averages out, so I'm just like a functioning guy with some seriously fucked up stuff going on in his head at all times, especially as a result of all this and the things that I have been asked to do in my 30s. But Titus was having something like that happen. And I just begged him, stop, please. Like, I've lost everything. And your dad had died 2 days before that. Yes. You were lying on that couch, crying, and I had nothing for you because everything had been taken from me. It was truly profound. And I went home, and then we watched the whole orchestra collapse after that. And all of a sudden, we're all on the same page. Except I have no future there. And you carried me through code school. And I tried to bury this with the symphony. Like, everybody knows who has followed this story and has seen me on the record speaking about this knows that I tried to quit. You know, I poked the hornet's nest with the N-bomb. I meant to do it because I saw this coming a mile away. The canary in the coal mine, the outcast, the shaman, whatever, the person outside of the situation who could actually see it. It's like, we've got a really talented guy here who we all want to succeed, but he will destroy us if that's what it takes.
Advantage of our family. He saw this as an opportunity to grow, step on us as he went up. Yeah.
He really did that.
Mm-hmm. I opened my home to him, my food, my table, my children, our lives.
We gave him so much. And you know, all I wanted was for him to say thank you to me after I saved him. I'm no white savior, okay? I'm not white savior complex. That's not what any of this is about. I'm literally colorblind. I can't see what everybody else sees. And I lived a peculiar upbringing in a peculiar place where not all, but so many of the most important people in my life in my formative years were black. My clarinet teacher, my tap dance instructor, my boss at Old Navy. You know, like, to have all this stuff being said about me in civil court that day, he made a mockery of the court system.
And our family.
And a mockery of my family and everything that I had done for him. And he equalized everybody. He got his equity all right. He got all the power and he flattened the institution. It's gone. It's zombified. Why do you think I dressed up like that zombie on Halloween?
Yeah.
And it scared so many people. It's because that's what they are. So he made a mockery of the court system, and why it's important for me to go on the record and explain that to anybody who is listening to this is that he's going to be honored at the Supreme Court. So there's an email from the Nashville Symphony musicians. They sent a newsletter during COVID, and I subscribed to it because I have some friends there, some people I care about still. And I'd like to hear what they're up to. You know, I root for my friends. I don't root for the institution. There's nothing left to root for, honestly. But a couple musicians did a piece on Titus, and they said that he will go before the Supreme Court to give a performance, a speech, and receive an honor from a special award from Sonia Sotomayor. So, good for him. He has a big opportunity. Despite having been completely obliterated and blown off the map and taken back to the Stone Age, I still maintain, for whatever reason, my idealism about this. And I think he has the chance to step up and own what he did. Or he can continue to be owned by his lies, trying to convince himself and everyone around him that that's really the truth, and he just has some special snake oil that makes him able to see it. It's not there. Like, everybody should recognize now.
There's no snake oil.
There's no snake. It's over. Like, you all got played. Admit it.
He was dealt terrible hands, and then we were...
Do you remember the night I came home from that audition? To that house in Nolensville. I was on fire. I was screaming. Your mom was over?
Mm-hmm. Helping, because Francesca was just born.
That house... No, she wasn't just born at that point. She was later. This was in 2019.
Okay.
When this oboe audition happened.
But she was still little.
She was still little. And your mom liked to come hang out.
She was helping me a lot.
And there was this 15-foot ceilings in that house, and my voice screaming about what had just happened to Titus was reflecting off every surface in that house. I was just totally on fire. I was on the phone with people like, we are going to ambush Giancarlo tomorrow.
I said you cannot go to sleep without addressing the situation. This
You did
is
say
not
that.
going to be brushed under the rug. This needs to be addressed. Giancarlo brushed under the rug. We don't live like that.
You said you cannot go to sleep without resolving this situation, but I did. I made myself go to sleep, and I woke up at 4, and I spent 2.5 hours composing that email, writing it, rewriting it, sending it to the committee and saying, this is going to happen over my dead body.
It was not cool what they did.
It was so inexcusable and so terrible, and it was the moment that I knew that I really didn't belong there anymore.
When you came home was that moment, because all that happened in the process.
But everybody had a chance to own it. So
Nobody
we did.
owned it
We did,
until
though,
you did.
until they just doubled down on their lies because Titus was threatening them. And whether that's all conjecture. It's all rumors. I don't know.
They were scared.
They were shitting their pants.
They were scared.
Rightfully so.
They were scared.
In any normal workplace, if any CEO had any balls and the music director had tried to do something like that, if I was running the orchestra, I would say, pack your fucking bags, and we're taking that bust out of the Skirmerhorn lobby and putting it in a garbage bag and taking it out to the dumpster where it belongs. Because that's not how we practice inclusion.
Brushing it under the rug.
But they just protected him because they want to just sacrifice one lowly musician because technically he said the N-word in front of a black man. How dumb are we? Are we in fucking kindergarten? Like, they got played. They're never going to own, those people are never going to own what they did because they're dead inside. Titus was a victim. He does deserve to be the principal oboe of the Nashville Symphony. I was always gunning for him.
He was the last one at the audition.
He sure as hell was. And nobody bothered to try to understand what was going on with him. Did anybody else have him at their table with their kids, praying over him?
Praying
I don't
for him
think
to
so.
get it, and praying for his family, and purely praying for his success.
So what's he going to do in front of the Supreme Court? Is he going to just make a shit show out of that too? This is the highest court in the land. And like, if I have any say ever in what happens in the future of this country, this is the moment for me to step up and say it. Like, and what I'm saying now is I don't have anything left to say now that I have addressed that Travis Shamockery of civil court in 2020. I'd like to think those judges wouldn't fall for it this time. You know who didn't fall for their shit? Ana Escobar. When they tried to get the third restraining order this year in March, because when I documented all the shit that Titus did to me in video form and sent it to the union, somebody leaked a copy to him, he got freaked out, so he cost me thousands more dollars in legal fees going back to court so he could show the judge like a little excerpt from these videos and say it made him scared. Give me a fucking break.
It was your defense for your attorney for the union.
So the funniest thing that happened in that hilarious thing, you can go look at the restraining order. That's all public record too. They tried to play. They saw a brown woman on the stand, and Emilio thought he could come in and play against that. He overpronounces his name to introduce himself, and she just looks at him like, are you kidding me? This woman is no nonsense. She's the first Latina woman to sit on the bench in Nashville. No
Yay.
joke.
Yay.
And she saw through them in 1 second. I could feel it. And Emilio came in. He thought he's so tough from what he did last time. He torpedoed the whole thing with that little joke of a performance. And they went out of there with their tails between their legs. They still cost me thousands of dollars and a day off from Salesforce. But whatever. I won that one. I fended them off. And I tried to settle it. The union is a joke. They buried this. And everybody's supposed to accept the cosmic justice now. That's how people make themselves feel better. It's like, well, James moved on to a much better job. He's the one person with integrity from this whole mess. And he gets to say whatever he wants. Like, we paid the price to be able to sit here at our own table and say these words out loud and have them be true. We don't have to lie. Do you realize the price? Does anyone realize the price of telling the truth? Of standing up? Like, I got completely obliterated. Like, what this did to our family, what this did to my body, what this did to my soul, like, I'm not mad about this anymore. But when I think of the look in Titus Underwood's eyes in that courtroom when I said, how could you forget being at my table? That is something I'll never be able to erase. I would love to forget it, but I just don't think I can. I don't think anyone in that courtroom, including that country bumpkin on the stand, had ever seen anything like Titus Underwood. And when he went out and started grandstanding that summer, we could have left it, you know.
He had the binder. He had a binder in court, and the judge was like, close the binder and just talk to me. Because he really wanted to preach his point, and it was like, this is not the place for this.
That's exactly what Escobar said to them. They were like, look,
this is not the place.
This is bad, but this isn't the place. That's all I was trying to say to them the year before. Like, why don't we just end this? Let's walk away. That's what I offered to do. Bury it forever.
Kept digging and digging to push us
couldn't
down
get out.
and down and down.
It was so crazy. Like, the prolonged exposure to a person that insane.
I don't know if it's insanity or if it's misguidedness.
I think historians will write about the mass psychosis of 2020 forever. As one of the great psyops in the history of mankind. It was so fascinating.
He was wronged, but he picked you, which was not right. It should have been the symphony that wronged him. Was it you?
Imagine Titus and I went after Giancarlo. We could have taken him out in 1 second. Exactly. That was the move. Why are these people so bad at this? Like, that's what I kept asking myself at every stage of the game.
But
like,
one
these people are
person's easier.
Huh?
One person is easier than an organization.
That's true.
And instead of taking the organization, he took you.
But everybody's gone now, and I feel like I won. If you have to line up winners and losers, I'm satisfied with the cosmic justice. I moved on. They all kept their jobs, and they get to keep being what they are. They can't live without the Nashville Symphony. And the whole time, I laid everything on the line in that car that night in February of 2019 with the N-bomb, knowing he would have the trump card that I wouldn't be able to overcome. That's what you give a friend that you trust. It's like, look, in 2019, in this world, the post-Jussie Smollett situation, I said the N-word in front of him 2 days after Jussie Smollett's crime. You could feel all this shit in the air. And what I want to know about these fools that pulled all this stuff off, like Jussie Smollett and Titus and the girl who got Jody Shaw ousted from, well, Jody quit, but the girl who got all those people fired at Smith College and the people that shouted down the Christakises on Yale's steps. Like, what happens to all these people that go out and destroy people's lives in the name of self-aggrandizement and just trash people on lies? Like, who's going to hold them accountable if we don't just sit here at our table and do it? Nobody. So if anyone thinks this is pathetic, they're partially right. I could take the high road and walk away. And believe me, there's a lot that is not being publicized about this story. I have only responded now to what has been said about me and contextualized it to my satisfaction.
Not all that has happened in our lives.
Nope. There will be stuff that will remain where you prefer to live offline.
Private.
Intimate. On this property. In the halls of this house. That's why we're doing this here. I always wondered, where would I tell this story? How would it happen? You know what?
This is the table.
This is it.
He sat at this table and then said he didn't remember telling us about his life and his family and his sister. And
it's an amazing story. What happened to the Nashville Symphony was amazing. And I'm grateful for a lot of good years. And I intend to remember what was good. I'm also really happy to be living a dream that is purely ours. A professional life that I did. You put me through that. I mean, you put me through school, basically. Like, you were running a home school in the basement, and I was in the same room at a Costco folding table learning to write JavaScript.
with headphones.
And trying to decompress and learn the language of critical race theory so that I could write and speak and talk about it for the rest of my life. Like, I did the reading. I did the homework. We paid the price. And now I want to be done. I want these people to live well. There's just nothing but misery over there. And for every one person on Facebook that calls me pathetic, there's 25 people in the side halls of recording studios and in the parking lots and in the streets hugging me and saying, I wish I could be doing what you're doing. You know you're doing this for more than just yourself. It's like, obviously, I shouldn't have been put up to this by anybody, but okay, you put me up to it. Now we did this. It's all out there for anybody who wants to see it. And I would like to talk in the future, when I'm turning 40 next year, about the things in my life that are happy and amazing, like us, and yoga, and
children.
Parenting, exactly, and homeschooling, and stuff that really makes a difference in people's lives. Nobody gives a shit about the Nashville Symphony anymore. They will fade into obscurity. And all that will be left is a beautiful building, which someday I may set foot again
building.
When all of those people are gone. I guarantee I'll outlive all those people. Because they're dead already.
Inside.
They can always get it back. Any one of these people can call me and apologize. And it is so crushing to have to do this to somebody like Giancarlo, who carried my first wife's casket at the funeral. For him to be so disappointing. After being the guy to give me the chance.
Scared.
When I was 26, when I set foot on that stage for the first time with a hole in the sole of my shoe wearing through, because I had nothing except a dream and my playing. As corny as that sounds, that was a happy story. And look at what was taken away from everybody. But I don't feel like I gave away the one thing that they wanted me to, which is my right to sit at my table and say whatever the hell I want.
Your integrity.
I think so. I was no prince. I played the game rough, but I don't think that once I saw the game changing, it's like I have no obligation to fight fair in this thing. If you want to take this thing off the rails, let's really go off the rails. Let's give you a caricature to play with. And he just couldn't tell the difference. He really lost the plot of the story. And I don't care to keep following it. And I want to get more distance on it. It feels good to know that after this, all I have to ever do if anyone tries to bring this up with me is say, I don't want to talk about this anymore. I'm done with this.
Finished.
It affected so many lives. It cost so many people so much money. And it's just so fascinating that Titus Underwood walks away with a $50,000 prize from Sphinx, a job he didn't get to win, and a position at the Cincinnati Conservatory.
And a discussion with the Supreme Court.
What if I kept my fucking mouth shut that night? Nobody ever wins when they keep their mouth shut. That's actually probably not true. There are times, but that wasn't the time. That was not the time. Everyone was given a chance to bury this behind closed doors. They didn't take it. So now I have satisfied what I set out to do. I always knew this was the failure option. If they chucked me, I will tell it all. And now I've told what I want to tell. There's so much of it is so bad But I'm not here to skewer people and roast people and settle scores. I've settled scores with the people that escalated this to someplace it never should have gotten to. And I forgive everybody. You know what?
Stop climbing on everybody
He
else's
fucked up.
backs.
He really fucked up, and he has to live with it. I don't know how he's going to do it. I really don't. Like, you
It's
saw
not
the look
on
on
you.
Amanda's face in the back of that courtroom.
I did.
You had to see that.
Yeah.
It was pure misery on everyone's face, even hers.
She was as miserable as I was, sitting with my face covered because COVID had just started.
Yep, it was just a true out-of-body experience, but that's it. So I'm going to attempt to put this out soon and head into 2022 without this weighing me down. So thanks for joining me. I know this is not your comfort zone, but
It needs to be over.
let's leave it there. Later.